Palworld. Palworld is the game right now, and it is kicking 2024 off with a bang. There's a lot of strong emotions surrounding the game, ranging from, this is a crime against me, personally, and if you enjoyed this, you are an evil person, all the way to, this is one of the best games ever created, and if you disagree with me, you are a Game Freak or Nintendo shill. And to be fair, and not sensational, there is a good amount of people somewhere in between. But what I don't see a lot of, or anyone doing, is taking a critical look at the game itself and asking, is it a good game on its own terms? And by that I mean, with regards to the product in an objective sense, is it quality? And in a less objective sense, is it actually fun? The most obvious comparison, and the one you've probably heard or been sold on, is Pokemon with guns, which, if you've already played Palworld, you know doesn't reflect the gameplay. Palworld is much closer to Ark or Valaha, as it falls very cleanly into the crafting survival genre, while using the capture taming creatures concept from Ark and Pokemon. No, that tagline probably came up due to the designs of the creatures in Palworld, but we'll get back to that. The core gameplay loop of Palworld is gather resources while exploring, use resources to build and advance your base, which provides tools to explore further and gather more and new resources, and so on. The pals actually fit into every level of that formula very nicely. Very quickly you'll find that pals aren't treated like Pokemon in Palworld. They're more like how animals exist alongside humans or standard monsters in an RPG. Early on, you may need to hunt pals for their meat to sustain yourself and your own pals, like deer in Valheim. Ironically, where Palworld drew inspiration for their deer pal, but again, later. Speaking of your own pals, they're not used like in Pokemon either. Your focus won't be on building a well-rounded team of 6 to battle with. You'll actually be looking more for different types of pals depending on your playstyle or what you want to focus on. Your base is going to need pals to operate. Even if you were to craft everything yourself, which is horribly slow, and I don't know why you'd subject yourself to that, there's some things like kindling furnaces or powering generators you just can't do as a human. So you could focus on finding and catching pals with different work suitabilities to advance your base. Work suitabilities dictate the range of activities a pal can do at a base, such as lumbering and mining for harvesting trees and rocks respectively, gathering and transporting for harvesting crops and materials and placing them inside of your storage, and kindling and watering for spewing fire to power a furnace or water onto your crops or a mill. And there's a bunch more, but you get the point. If you're more the freewheeling, live on the open road type, the exploration probably calls to you more, in which case you'll probably want to find different pals that can be ridden or mounted as their partner skill. Partner skills are a unique ability per pal that can range and function from a passive boost, to being used as a mount, to a powerful attack they can use in battle on your command. Most pals, or at least all of the mounts, require a tech tree purchase for their specific pal ability to be unlocked, or to unlock a key item you have to craft, then use their skill. That's pretty bad design, not gonna lie, especially since different pal skills are locked behind items pretty far into the tech tree, which is gated by player level, so you have to level up to get a craftable item to use the skill or ride them. But also, you can only see the related item in the tech tree if you've captured the corresponding pal already, whether you meet the level requirement or not. And some of these pals you'll encounter way before you'll reasonably level up enough to unlock their item to craft to use their partner skill. Unlocking method aside though, the partner skills are probably the coolest and most unique thing about Palworld. The reason you'll want them for exploration is because this lets you fly in the backs of birds, ride significantly faster than your character can run on horses and zebras and stuff, and even battle on your pal's back, which is cool as hell. Yeah, you can shoot, throw pal spheres, and even use your mounted pal's attacks while you ride them. Speaking of attacks, there is of course the combat and battle pursuit aspect of the game. Now, the amount I can comment on that is kind of limited since I have not finished the game. In fact, I've only done the first major boss at the Rain Syndicate Tower, which I think most people have. But the combat may be the least exciting and least developed part of Palworld. Not that I don't like the combat, I just feel like it's the most underdeveloped. And again, disclosure, I haven't had the chance yet to play with some of the later guns in the game, like the shotguns or the assault rifle. Ammo being a very finite or at least valuable resource as it is though, it doesn't seem like even once you unlock them, it's something you're always using super liberally. I can say easily the most fun I've had is with the musket. Riding up on the back of a dragon and blasting someone with a Revolutionary War era firearm and seeing their whole health bar disappear is something out of Flash Gordon or Kung Fury, and it brings a childlike joy. You will end up relying on your pals a lot in combat though, even on foot. A single hostile pal, even a boss, can usually be handled safely, either by simply kiting them or dodging, or exploiting the pathfinding and the AI of enemies. But you can quickly get overwhelmed by even like 2 or 3 pals around or above your level, especially depending on what attacks they have. There isn't much depth to pals fighting other pals. The most central game mechanic of Pokemon type matchups is almost non-existent here. The type matchup chart looks like this for Palworld, where the arrows indicate one type having advantage over the type its arrow points to, and obviously the type that's being pointed to having a disadvantage against the former. An advantage means it deals more to that type and takes less from it. You'll notice every type just has one disadvantage matchup and one advantage matchup, except for fire, which gets 2 advantages, and neutral, which gets none. Oof. There does seem to be stab, as Pokemon veterans know it, or same type attack bonus, I think. I've read that it's 20%, I couldn't test this reliably in game. There's a lot of factors like the pals you encounter in the overworld can have things that make them take more from certain attacks and you just don't know if you kill them what they had. But it's not indicated or mentioned anywhere in game if there's same type attack bonus. Also, every pal seems to be able to learn every move, albeit by these fruits, which function as TMs or technical machines, teaching moves to pals. Each pal also does learn moves as they level, and you can remember any of the moves they've known at any time, which is pretty cool. You can have 5 pals with you at any time, each one can have 3 moves, plus their partner skill, as well as up to 4 passive skills. These are a pretty cool Palworld unique trait system. Every passive skill is either positive or negative, and tier 1 through 3. Passive skills can simply boost or hinder a stat, or both, or in some cases boost multiple skills, like the Lucky passive skill, which always shows up on Palworld's version of Shinies, which are Lucky Pals. They're not different colors, they're just big. Passive skills can also provide a boost to certain types of resistances, or attacks of a certain type, and some other stuff. Some pals are predisposed to certain passives, like Kativa always having the Cowardly passive, and Lovander always having Abnormal. Checks out. The 3 moves a pal can have don't have a limited number of uses, but rather each have a short cooldown based on their power. So the bigger moves like the giant laser beams and cannons, whatever they're called, have a much longer cooldown than the single shot ones that you can kind of spam. This isn't really made clear anywhere in the game though, and you can't see the cooldown unless you're riding the pal using the moves. Seeing some streamers not understanding this aspect of pal combat was a bit funny.
Wait, my dark laser's gonna go crazy on it. Chickpea, do it! Chickpea, fucking do it! Chickpea! Yes. Oh!
And with those 3 things, that's pretty much the gist of what you're gonna do in the game. Specific things I left out, like the story, dungeons, and pal collecting, I'm lumping in under one of those. So the big question is, how well does Palworld do each of these 3 things? I want to start with the base building. Palworld does base building probably better than a lot of full release games. The structural pieces like floors, walls, and roofs snap together pretty smoothly. You can rotate them freely, and while you can't build anything too complicated, or at least there's not a huge variety of pieces, what is there works really well for it. The functional pieces such as workbenches, chests, beds, and production or resource facilities usually are not a pain to place from collision or anything. And side note, there's a lot to say in regards to the PAL's designs, most of it not great, but the other asset designs are really good. The stations that involve a specific resource or item usually feature that item visibly at the station. Like the basic hot spring has a Damud spigot, the sphere crafting workstation has spheres hanging on it, The assembly line conveyor belt has boxes with Palworld's models for leather and wool in them. Usually, it's pretty cohesive. Conceptually, Palworld takes another W. The game has a good number of systems that run in tandem fairly cleanly to add depth in the gameplay here. I already mentioned the work suit abilities, which dictate what pals can do at a base. Some pals only have one, some have a lot more. To operate a base effectively, you'll have to choose which pals with which work suit abilities you apply to each base. Early on, you're very limited to how many pals your base can even house, so your options are narrower. You also have to consider your pals' morale though, or as Palworld calls it, sanity. As pals perform any task, it drains their sanity. Man, that just sounds terrible. Honestly, I'd have called it morale or spirit or something, anything other than sanity. They're really not helping themselves with that one. Pal sanity is crucial to your base's automation though. If pals are unhappy or drained of sanity, they'll need to take a break or even go lie down. Real. You can build them comforts like hot springs or comfier beds to restore their sanity on breaks faster, and even set the intensity of your base's work regimen to higher productivity but higher sanity drain, or lower productivity for a lower sanity drain. If pals suffer too much at your base, they can even develop depression or ulcers. Too real. If pals suffer too much at your base, they can even develop depression or ulcers, which if you want to restore their productivity, you'll have to buy or make medicine for them. Quick aside on that, I have not found a way to administer aid to sick pals at the base without swapping them into my party. Small opportunity to improve the game there, just let us give medicine to sick pals on the base. Let us do it walking up to them. There's a radial menu that pops up if you interact with them, which lets you pet them. There should be an option in there to give medicine. Make it a lot easier. Anyways, pal health is also tied to their hunger, and if you don't feed your pals on base, they will starve, just like your Tamagotchi and your Neopets. Your Neopets are probably dead. Pals will feed themselves automatically, just like they perform work and leisure, so long as you've built a feed box. Now, you don't even have to manually fill the feed box. If you build a crop field at your base and you have pals with the planting, watering, harvesting, and transporting skills, your pals will grow and harvest their own crops and stash them in the feed box to consume when they're hungry and feed everyone else. But how many pals will that take you? Can you find one pal with all of those skills? And the amount a pal needs to eat varies from pal to pal. If you have Lamball at your base to generate wool and perform transporting, their food consumption is only 2 out of 10. Their maximum hunger is, I think, 150. They don't need to eat a lot. In contrast, say you use a Mamarest at your base, that huge grass Donphin from the beginning of the game, that thing has an 8 out of 10 food consumption. I think its maximum hunger is something like 575. He'll need more food, a lot more, to refill while performing tasks. But he does have level 2 planting, lumbering, and mining, which means Mamarest performs 3 different tasks at a quicker pace than normal. The real satisfaction of all of these systems together is when you catch a pal that is a species with good work suit abilities that also rolled a good work related passive skill. Robinquill, for example, has planting, handiwork, lumbering, medicine production, transporting, and gathering, half of which those are level 2, and its food consumption is only 3 out of 10. Its maximum hunger is something like 225. This one happens to have the workaholic trait, which makes its sanity drop slower while working on top of that. This Damud, on top of mining, watering, and transporting, has the serious passive, which is a 20% increase to work speed. Having all your pals at a base makes it pretty stacked and cool location, which understandably can be targeted by enemies. Various types of raids can pop up where a smallish horde of enemies can rush your base, ranging from humans with guns to packs of wild pals. Now, you can build defenses, but personally I've never seen a raid do any damage. Having a bunch of your pals at the same time at the base means it's extraordinarily well protected. Nothing seems to be able to stand up to 5 or more of your own pals attacking together. And on that note, as much as I've been filleting this system so far, it is not perfect. So let's talk about some of its problems. If you want a specific pal to do something specific, it's not great. You can pick up any pal in your base in a pretty comical way, and you're supposed to be able to assign them to a fixed station by looking at it while carrying a pal and tossing them down. And let me just say, the animation for picking up the pals is great. While you're carrying them, they have this ragdoll-y characteristic to them, which is just funny considering you can pick up any size pal. The issue, you can't target a specific workstation reliably. You can throw them at the station and they might think that you're trying to get them to go to the station next to it. You can throw them at the ground near the station and they can say, oh, there's nothing in the immediate vicinity that needs to be done. Or you can throw them at the workstation and they can respond that they don't have a skill that's not associated with that workstation at all, so they can't work on it. PAL routing, or pathfinding, also seems a little busted. I had a lot of issues with PALs somehow getting stuck on top of my roof, and once they were up there, they didn't know how to get down. So they'd get sick, starve, and typically leave whatever they were supposed to be doing undone. The build pieces also can't go into terrain, like, at all. So if your base has any cliffs or elevation changes or 2 different levels, you can't build paths for pals to get around between them. There's also a lot of redundancy in the workstations and items you can craft. You may have to alternate what you have set up at one time or get rid of some stuff just to reduce the clutter. The pals with transportation are also pretty good about picking things up and putting them in a chest, but you don't have a way to dictate which chest, at least that I found. So pretty annoying if you're trying to stay organized. There seems to be something with the closest chest to where they pick it up, or the workstation, or the last one you built maybe, but I couldn't get it to work consistently. Thank goodness there is no player collision with pals in the base. You can walk right through them because they take up a lot of space. There is, however, a command overlap, at least on Xbox, for the mount dismount button and using workstations, as well as picking up pals. This means if you ride in on the back of a pal or need to mount up suddenly in case of a raid, you'll probably accidentally open up a workstation or pick up a pal instead. Oh, and last thing, splitting stacks in your inventory and chests. You can pick up the whole stack, you can pick up a half a stack, you can't pick up one and you can't drop one. Just a little tedious for when you want a single piece of an item or when you're trying to drop weight from being encumbered. Counterpoint to that though, it seems like every item stacks well over 4-digit amounts, so that's convenient. There's actually a lot of cool small details with the base management in Palworld too, like some pals are actually nocturnal and will work and relax through the night while everyone else is sleeping. It's not even just dark types too. Also at night, the temperature drops, dealing low but steady damage to you unless you wear something cold resistant or stay near fire. What Palworld does not tell you though is that you can also just whip out a fire type pal and have them walk around with you and not get cold. Alternatively, there's actually a thermal underwear item you can get from dungeon chests that goes in the accessory slot, where you'd otherwise put rings and amulets that provides cold resist enough to not take damage at night. So all of that said, on a technical level, I would rate the base building mechanics of Palworld an 8.25. There's still room to improve. It's obvious the game is in early access, but this is far more satisfying, in-depth, and functional than anything I've come to expect from a title with the early access label attached to it. Yes, that was just the score for the base building component, not the whole game. Originally, I wasn't even going to do that. I was just going to score the game as a whole. But this is the first time I've done a video this long and in depth and even written a script. My hand hurts. And this is way longer than I intended. So I'm splitting this off into at least one more video, hopefully just one more, maybe 2 if I can't fit both of those other ones into one. I don't want to do the regular internet asks, but please let me know if this was actually enjoyable or helpful. Should I even do the other one? I actually just finished recording this as the Pokemon Company issued their statement on Palworld, so who knows, maybe by the time I edit this, there won't even be a Palworld. Anyways, I'm out.